This episode is brought to you by Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard of Anchor, you should definitely check them out. It's a super easy tool that anyone can use to create and distribute their podcast. It has everything you need, and you can do it all from your computer or even your phone. Need your podcast cover art? There's a tool. Music and sound effects? They have you covered. Want to record on the fly? It's easy with the app. Now you may be saying to yourself, I already have a podcast. No worries, just create your account, upload, and publish to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Looking for some walking around money? Anchor connects you with advertisers who match your brand. It's a one-stop shop for all of your podcasting needs. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm to get started.
You're listening to Biz Quick. This is where Julie and Corey provide quick and useful information to small business owners. Biz Quick is the podcast where small business owners get to showcase their businesses and receive expert advice and guidance in areas many entrepreneurs struggle with. And you, the listener, get solutions, tips, and tricks on real-world topics that many small business owners face. Julie and Corey are the experts small businesses hire when they need solutions. And the Biz Quick podcast is just one way they deliver those solutions. Let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to Biz Quick. I'm Corey.
I'm Julie.
And on today's show, we have friend of SB Pace, Bill Bolton of B.O.M.B Insurance Hub out of Leesburg, Virginia. He is an expert at business insurance, and he's going to come on to talk to us about cybersecurity and the different types of insurance and coverage that you might want to have, because something that, pretty much everything that isn't pandemic related has been overshadowed the past year, I'd say. And that with the shift to remote everything and digital everything, it's a good topic to talk about because for a lot of people out there, we were on a Zoom earlier today where it's like, have you guys not used a computer before? Like, how did this happen? Like, we've been in a pandemic for a year and everybody has been.
How do you not know how to mute your Zoom?
Exactly. So clearly it's still something that not everybody's mastered, even in today's society. So we're going to talk a little bit about that before we bring Bill on.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a great topic and one that is very widespread in terms of, I think sometimes we forget I don't think we forget how much we rely on, technology, but I think we tend to overlook some of the nefarious things that can happen as a result of technology.
Well, sure. And with you cannot go online anywhere without something popping up saying, hey, use our app. Hey, use our app. It's better in the app. Well, first of all, is it? But second of all, everybody's just so I think now just accustomed to click yes, install, click yes, install. What are you actually installing? Do you know?
Right. Yeah. Great question. Perfect example, as Clubhouse is, taking the world by storm, less so now. I think people are growing tired of it, they're less enamored by it, although it's becoming available for Android users now. But I don't know how many people realize that Instagram put into their terms of service that they have the right to record you in Clubhouse and use that information.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny. You talk to anybody nowadays and they all have the story of, I was just talking to my neighbor about hammocks. And the next time I logged into whatever, there's an advertisement for hammocks on there. Yes, they are listening to you. Yeah. Everybody's listening to you. Everybody's, especially if you've, went ahead and installed your own eavesdropping device in your house willingly, AKA Alexa, okay, Google, whatever.
Google Play, is that what it's called? I don't even know either.
I don't know it. I don't care because I don't have any of those in
Google
my house.
Home, I don't know. Yeah, I was just thinking how we've come full circle on the marketing piece, right? Because I remember when Seth Godin first, introduced the concept of permission marketing, which most people still use in terms of, hey, do you want to sign up for my blog? But there are so many other ways that companies market to us now that have nothing to do with permission. They're just completely invasive, where they're just in your face. And in most instances, you have to go check a box to not let something happen versus checking a box to let it happen. It's crazy.
Well, and how many of those user terms, use of agreement contracts have you ever actually read? Or you just scroll to the bottom, hit accept and just keep going.
Well, there's no way in hell I'm ever reading Apple's, because it's like, I think they make it super long just so nobody will read them, right? I always try and I look and see. I have removed the ability for Apple to automatically make updates to my phone now, right? Like they have to get my permission to do it, and I will typically research now what's included in the update before I will take it. But inevitably you end up taking them.
Well, you have to, like at a certain point you have to.
Yeah, you do.
I did hear this funny story, and this happened years ago, but you get those like credit card applications in the mail. You get the credit card application in the mail that had like the fake credit card or whatever, even whatever.
Yeah.
And this guy, I don't remember where it was, but he retyped the entire thing, except adjusted all of the terms so they are in his favor, signed it and sent it back. The company accepted it, got his card. He he got like $20,000-$30,000 like out of the card, and the bank like came after him, and he was like, hey, and they took him to court, and the judge looked, is like, you guys signed the agreement. So he just rewrote the agreement and sent it back to them, because they didn't bother to read the agreement that he signed, and they agreed to it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It can go both ways. I'm sure there's.
But when you think about cybersecurity, which I'm excited to hear Bill talk about, because if there's ever anybody who can really make you want to learn more about insurance and things in this nature, it's Bill. He's very good at what he does. So it'll be a great conversation. Thinking about, how much information people willingly give up without even thinking about it. Like how many times I just had somebody the other day asked me to text them hey, can you text me your credit card number? And I was like, no, no, I absolutely not. I can call you, but then you start to think, what's the difference between calling, because there's always somebody listening anyway, right?
Yeah, but I mean, for me, it's nice to have that confirmation. Like I'll get like every once in a while, and I mean, every 2 years or something like that. There's that weird text message that comes through, or like a weird email. And like, I will call, cause it's like, hey, something's wrong with your bank account or whatever. 99.999% of those are like a phishing scam or whatever. But if it looks legit enough, it's like, all right, well, let me call and talk to a human.
Right.
And then figure out, okay, so I know, like I went to their website and got their phone number. I'm not responding to whatever was sent to me, and just say, hey, and just making sure this is legit. And the same thing goes with, I mean, even if I get a text message from like a friend of mine and they wanted some sort of personal information, be like, I'm going to call you. Cause I don't know. I mean, with the technology, like the scam technology nowadays, like whatever it is, I mean, I do that with my own brother and sister-in-law. They're like something, I'm like, just wait till I'm over there for dinner this week.
We can talk about it then. We don't need to talk about this.
Yeah, we'll turn the music up real loud so Alexa can't listen in.
Right. Well, and think about, I don't know if this happens to you or not, but I get at least once a day, I'll get a text message from some business, air quote business, right? Like, hey, Netflix is giving everybody a free year of service because of the pandemic. Click this link. And I'm like, how many people do you think are dumb enough to click it?
Enough that it continues to happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the nice thing for scammers is like nowadays with technology is it requires little to no effort. And if your success rate is less than 1%, that's fine. If you're sending out 1 million of these things,
Yeah. And then you think too, obviously if you're going to talk about cybersecurity, you got to talk about passwords.
Yeah. And that you should have different passwords for all of your accounts. Now I've got a throwaway password that I use, and it's like I've got some variations of it for accounts that don't have any
financial
or personal information or anything like that. It's like, oh, you need to create an account to, access this service or whatever. It's like, all right, cool. And I'm going to unsubscribe from your email as soon as I get the first one. But yeah, having the same password for, I don't know, your bank and your credit cards and the IRS and all of that, probably not a good idea.
Agreed. 100% agreement. Not a good idea.
Yeah. And
not a good idea.
An interesting thing that I read, and we are going to have to stop here soon, but I'm going to leave on this note. one of the things that I read, like if my only tip on cybersecurity, and this is to the people out there listening, it is better to get your employees to create one really long, complicated password and have them never change it than to have them change it every 6 months or whatever it is. Like in the name
because
of
they get
security,
lazy.
they get lazy. And it's like, I remember talking to a coworker at the company we used to work for, where they had been there long enough that they had to start back over at 00 because they had already got to 99. They had been there long enough, but it was the same word: 01, 02, 87, 88. And they're like, I just got the 99, so I'm back to 00.
Oh my God, that's insane. When we're done recording, will you tell me who it is?
Yes. So yeah, we're going to take a quick break and we'll bring Bill on to talk about insurance and cybersecurity. See you soon. We wanted to take a quick break to tell you about our newest course called Time Bomb. If you're ready to take control of your calendar, this course is for you. We guide you through all the steps you need to understand where you're spending your time, what your time is worth, and how to build out your days and weeks so that you can add more value to your business or just spend that time enjoying life. We have 3 options for you: the course, a bundle which includes products designed to help you become more efficient with your time, and a boot camp where you'll get time in a small group setting to get the personalized help you need. Head on over to sbpace.com to learn more. Time Bomb. Take control of your calendar, gain control of your life. All right, and welcome back to the show. We've got Bill Bolton on from BB Insurance Hub, and he's going to talk about cybersecurity and other matters relating to insurance, etc. Welcome, Bill.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Julie and Corey, for having me on today.
It's great to have you. This is long overdue, talking about business insurance, an extremely important topic that very few people like to actually engage in.
It's very true. And I've been looking forward to this for a long time as well. And yes, you are correct. Lots and lots of people look at it like a necessary evil, and I completely understand that.
Yeah.
I want to say historically, but not even. I mean, just more recently, everybody's bombarded with all kinds of very cute commercials on, about bundling and saving money on insurance. So it's been commoditized to a point that it's really dangerous. Well, at least to think that way,
Yeah.
Well,
what's interesting is I think until I met you, I've never really met anybody before who was so great at educating their customers on insurance, right? And that's one of the things that I always say about you when we're talking about insurance, or somebody's looking for an insurance agent, or they're starting a new business and need insurance. I'm like, dude, go talk to Bill, because he will help you understand it to a way that you know what you're getting. So this is good, because I think a lot of people tend to think that it's a boring and non-essential conversation, and it's not. It's actually, you make it not boring at all. So I'm excited to dig into it.
It makes me happy. It's part of the objective, because I can get very nerdy with this stuff.
And you don't make it nerdy though at all.
I know. Well, I try not to. I mean, that's all the stuff I do in my little hole, in a dark corner of my house, and so I can get all that stuff done and then come present it very comfortably, to one of my potential new clients. So
excellent.
I do have a way of simplifying it, I guess, is the best way to put it. I can make sense out of the extremely intricate and confusing world that is insurance, and specific to commercial insurance. That's what we're talking about.
And I'm going to say one more nice thing to you, and that's it. The rest of the time,
cool.
I'm just going to be
fill my head up. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Then we're going to come at you hard with the hard questions. But I will say this for everybody who's listening. I know we have referred a number of people to Bill, and every person that we've referred talks about how amazing he is to work with and how easy he is, how good he is to his clients. Like, you are really, really good with your clients. And that I hear from everybody that has you that we know. So that's it. That's the last nice thing I'm saying. So now let's get to the tough questions.
Yeah, because damn well I'm not going to give you any compliments. So
no. I've known you too long.
Yeah. So Bill, before we jump into questions, can you just give us a quick background on you, your business, why you're qualified to talk about insurance, etc.?
Sure. Yeah. I've been in the industry for just over 15 years. I have jumped around to quite a few different agencies over my career, both large national brokerages to more independent medium-sized companies and small local businesses, agencies, anyways. So I've seen a little bit of everything, and I tout myself to be a pretty smart cookie. So I've taken a lot of this information and retooled it to better serve my clientele. And my own company, I just opened up at the beginning of 2020, which is a wonderful time to start a company right before everything shuts down due to a pandemic. But You know, so they're look for the silver lining. It gave me time to get the infrastructure set up correctly. So, I mean, that's, the really the quick background, just specific to insurance. I'm a Hokie, so go Hokies if anybody out there is listening.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares,
Yeah,
bro.
okay.
Those are the niceties were over.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. The only person that cares is me, and I don't really even care. So
That's all right.
Well, let's jump into it because, over the past year, everybody, the pandemic has been by and large the only thing that people have talked about. Not the only thing, but it has been the main topic of conversation. But with everybody moving to online, to digital, to doing everything that they possibly can without having to be in person, I feel like there's been quite a large opportunity for the bad guys to take advantage of all of that move to digital. So we wanted to talk about cyber insurance and cybersecurity and all of that stuff. And that's something that I know that you work with because you work with the government and all of that. So you got to be pretty knowledgeable about how all of that stuff works.
Very true. And yeah, you said, lately it's become an issue. No, this has been a hot topic for quite a long time, actually. It's yes, now that there are more people online and more businesses are moving towards the internet, of course, the exposure is going to be larger. Yeah, it does give more opportunities for the bad guys. But it is something that's been, a very hot item for a long time. Um, Basically, if you own a business, you need to have it, or at least some version of it. It's just a matter of time. If not when, really. And I talk to people all the time that say, well, we're not collecting data, we're not storing the data, we don't keep credit card numbers, or we have no personal information. We everything's on the cloud. I mean, there's always different reasons why you shouldn't buy it, and I understand it's an additional line item. It's another expense because it will cost money. I mean, there's no two ways about it. You're buying a new product. But it's one of those situations where if not when, it makes plenty of sense. And I don't have the statistics right here in front of me, but like, so you take, fires, for example. That's the thing that people really think about when they think of, what's going to happen to my business. A fire. What if there's a fire? I guess for those that have brick and mortar. But so if a fire happens, I lose everything. Hopefully my insurance is going to pay for that. Yeah, the short answer is most likely. I mean, that's relatively easy to cover. And of course, there's always caveats, but it's relatively an easy thing to just. So yeah, if you have a fire, you're going to be okay. The likelihood of having a fire is it's so much lower than the likelihood of having a cyber attack. It's not even worth. I mean, it's not even worth looking up the statistic, but there is one out there. There's many of them out there actually. So it's just, you really want to insure for, possibility, not probability. I mean, that's really the idea, but this is so probable that if you don't have it, I'm going to recommend that you go out there and get at least something. Now there are different, there's varying levels like any other insurance, policy or product. And I call insurance policies contracts, by the way, because they are. So if you hear me say contract, I'm going to use them interchangeably with the word policy because they are unilateral contracts. So there are varying levels of insurance contracts out there that you can purchase. You can get a basic little module of, cyber liability, and it can mean all kinds of different stuff added to your general liability policy for a relatively low amount of money. And we're talking, a few $100s a year. And so we're not talking about something that's going to break the bank. If you're trying to get a standalone policy, of course, that's going to cost a little bit more, but the policies are more robust. So you're covering, first and third party damages. So your own company as well as other organizations at that point. Any third party lawsuits or third party damages, so that's important to take a look at as well. One of the items that, and this is more of a historical point of view, and this is starting to change dramatically right now, is that there really wasn't much of a crossover between cyber liability insurance and management liability insurance. And there's some areas that they do touch, but one of the biggest ones was crime and social engineering. And that's really, and I'll get into a little more detail about that, is typically covered or historically covered under a crime policy, which has nothing to do with cyber liability. Really what social engineering is when you add that human element into the mix, The example I always give people, and this literally happened to actually a couple of my clients, CFO or whoever it is that's really in charge of the money is out of town on vacation. And then the director of finance gets an email directly from the CFO. It looks like the CFO's email. It has their signature. It is from the CFO. And it said, holy crap, I forgot to send $250,000 to this bank account. They just changed it. I need you to send this right away. Director of finance says, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm right on it. They send that money. Unfortunately, it turns out that was social engineering. Somebody figured out who's who, figured out who's in charge of doing what, maybe found out that they were going on vacation, or maybe they were just rolling the dice and hit a good one. But in any event, that's the an example of social engineering. And there's, of course, there's different levels of that as well. But
Sure.
That typically was not covered by cyber. It is more and more now. It's just something that you needed to pay attention to with the management liability policy.
Okay, so
yeah,
let's go back to somebody who's just got their online retailer. They sell whatever it is, just something
Lip
simple.
balm.
Yeah, lip balm, whatever it is. So they're all set up for everything. But when their website, they go through, let's say, like Shopify. They use Stripe to process their payments. They don't store any of the information, whatever. Is there still that level of protection for them as the retailer? I know that, like, if I got hacked, like, people could still come after me, but essentially I could pass the buck on to whoever should be supplying that security.
Sure. There's multiple answers within all of that. So the short answer is yes. I mean, small businesses, the small mom and pops, mom and pops, the small, like I said, brick and mortar kind of stores, or even e-commerce. I mean, yes, there are policies out there set up for smaller businesses. I mentioned before, you could probably get, a small, part of it added to your existing coverage for relatively little money. Even if you want to get a standalone policy, the way that they're underwritten, it's, of course, there are varying factors, how they quantify what you're going to pay. But one of the big ones is revenue. So if you don't have a lot of revenue, they're not going to charge you much. So it doesn't cost much. So there are opportunities for them to get it. And then you mentioned, if you are, and this is the way that all lawsuits work. Even if, you're supposed to be passing the buck to somebody else, or if it really is somebody else that's at fault, if there is a third party that's going to sue, they're actually going to sue every party involved. If there's a lawsuit. Now, outside of that, if you actually are responsible for a hack, you're still required, to notify everybody that's ever been on your system. That costs money. There's regulatory fines, there's, fees and fines you have to take care of. There's credit monitoring that you're required to pay for. And that's just if their information may have been compromised. So, I mean, even without a lawsuit, there's still expenses that you have to take care of, legally have to take care of, if your system has been compromised in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, yeah, I guess the quick answer is yes, there's those availabilities out there. One more quick note, because a lot of small businesses think, and I understand this type of thinking. I own a small business as well. However, they think that I'm not the target. I'm not going to be the business that these companies want to go after. And in a lot of circumstances, you're right. But I can guarantee you it's a lot easier to get in and through your system as a small business owner than it is to get into the big boys. But there's a back door through your system to get into theirs. So a lot of the times, like really good hackers, what they will do is start at the bottom and start working their way up. And these are all the kinds of, and listen, there's certain things you should have in place prior to insurance, but this is something that, the crap's already hit the fan, and how am I going to pay for this? That's what this is really designed to do.
That's a really good point on being the back door into the bigger companies' systems, and something that probably most people don't think of. This may be the same question Corey just asked you in a different format. I'm not entirely sure. I am curious, are there any businesses that don't need to consider cyber insurance?
Really? I mean, honestly, no. I mean, if you have a computer, if you're storing any data, client information, if you have an email address, yeah, you should have something.
What if it's an AOL email address? Even
Oh
that.
no, you're pervious to hacks. Their technology was so far advanced back in the 90s that you no longer have to worry about it.
Either
You
that or
will.
it's so antiquated now that nobody would even know what to do with it.
Right. I'm also thinking anybody who has an AOL email address that's still using it probably really needs cyber insurance, because that means they're really behind on everything.
Yeah. No. So literally, if you have a business, it is something that you at least need to look into. Again, there's a possibility that you already have a small amount included. I mean, if cash flow is really a big issue, there is a good chance that you may have, they call it a sub limit, a small limit within your policy for something like this. Just make sure that you have at least something if cash flow is that big of an issue. If you have the money to do it, if you haven't done it already, like, do it now. Like, seriously, because it is just a matter of time before this happens. Now, you're going to start seeing this more and more, actually, because it's typically not required by contract. And I don't mean insurance contracts. I mean, when you are entering into a contract with another company or whoever it is, a lease agreement, it's typically not required. That's starting to change, though. I'm starting to see it creep in way more these days. Particularly those that are doing anything IT related, or doing business with any kind of whether it be a municipality or the federal government or whom state, local governments. I mean, I'm starting to see it creep into contracts more and more. But pretty much any business, I mean, it's a good business practice to look at it and probably have it in place.
Yeah, and it definitely is something that I don't think that many people think of, because it again, like you said, like a fire is real. I can see a fire, I can feel a fire, I can imagine my stuff burning, but like the cyber crimes are it's digital. Like, I mean, I've had my credit card numbers stolen a handful of times. And it's one of those things, like, I don't even really, like, nowadays, like, think twice about it, because my credit cards generally have, like, they've got the fraud protection already. So I get a phone call at 6:30 in the morning with, like, did you just try and buy $300 of something at Walmart? And I'm like, nope. Let's go ahead and just cancel that card. And they're like, cool, well, we'll get this figured out. And but it's fake money. It's something you don't really think about. So yeah, that's interesting.
Do you
That's all right on an individual basis, but when you're touching other people. So sorry, Julie, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you saying?
That's okay. That's okay. You had me at touching other people. So
Yeah.
if you
is that one of the things I'm not supposed to say? Is that
what would you, so for people that for business owners who already have business insurance and they reach out to their current broker or agent and ask them about cyber security, like, hey, what's my coverage, or what do I have in place, or do I need this? If they get the answer back, nah, you're good, you don't really need it, what should they do to pursue it to make sure that they have the proper coverage?
Well, call me. No, I'm just kidding. So you first of all, if you're working with somebody and they haven't brought it up to you, that's a red flag already. Because this is, I mean, it's so rampant. It really is just it's happening all the time, whether you know it or not. And that's the other scary thing. So if it hasn't been brought up yet, if you're the one bringing it up to them, it's probably a red flag. If you do bring it up to them, they should have a really good and really quick answer for you. And look, I could be wrong. There might be an exception to the rule where there may be a company that really doesn't need it at all. Like my daughter's lemonade stand, probably not a big cyber threat. It's not a big target. So, I mean, I'm sure that there are some businesses out there. But that's a great question, because I mean, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think about it and I can't think of one. If you have to bring it up to them and they don't have a good answer, another red flag. Okay. I guess the other part of your question was how do you pursue it thereafter?
Yeah.
Okay. So first and foremost, you should trust the person you're working with. This is an important piece of business infrastructure. So whoever you're working with, there has to be a layer of trust there. But if they don't have the right answer, there are plenty of resources out there. You can look on, you can Google it. There's a million, there's stuff on my website about this. There are a million resources out there that can point you in the right direction. And typically of an independent agent, there are different types of insurance agents and brokers out there. There are some that have expertise in commercial insurance. And if you are getting business or commercial insurance, you should be working with an expert in that field. And there's plenty, there's a lot of direction online about that. IRMI.com is a great resource for just basic insurance knowledge. There's not a lot of there's really no, direct advertising from insurance agents on that site. So it really is just information. You can go to the Independent Insurance Agents of Virginia. It's the IIAV.org. That whole organization is made out of people like me, just agency owners.
Okay.
So that would be a good place to start.
So I have another question for you. Do you have any tips? Like, what's a tip that you could give to, small business owners to help them better protect themselves against an attack?
Okay. Great question. I mentioned this very briefly. So this is not this is one of the first things you want to get, but you do want to have somebody handling your IT much better than, for example, than I did when I first got going. I was like, I got McAfee, I'm good. And that is, that's fine and dandy for the first 6 months or a year you're in business. But once you start getting clients and things start to move, you really do need to have, an IT professional get some things in place. And there are those out there that they'll do certain scans and certain, types of tests to your system to make sure that, that the patches are fixed within, your firewalls and everything is set up the way it should be. Is that 100% effective? No, nothing is, because these guys are really, they're tricky. And, just the social engineering stuff I was telling you about, there was, 1 year where I had 5 or 6 clients. They were all going through different cyber related claims, like all at the same time. And they were all completely different from one another. And it was really interesting learning all the, the different ways that people can be like, got you figured out. Money's mine now. So I would start with, a good IT person. You need to have policies in place. So if you have employees, if they have something that comes up that looks tricky, just have it send them directly to you. Or if you have an IT person, to the IT, whoever the IT professional is that's helping you out. If there's a help desk or something like that, if it doesn't look like it's correct, they should not have the ability to send money to anybody. Unless it's a much larger organization, and then you should have other checks and balances in place. You should have other like internal policies in place to protect your company and your money. But if you're a small business, they should not have the ability to go into, your bank account, for example. There should be certain things in place to protect the assets of your company.
Kind of like Corey doesn't give me access to any of the money. That's our protection. Is I have no access.
Yeah.
That's I'm not going to dive inside of what your organization is doing right now, but that sounds like a great idea, Corey.
Don't worry, I'm paranoid enough. I'm paranoid enough that nothing's getting by me.
It's bad enough that you have access to it.
Yeah. So real quick, Bill, we are going to we're gonna have to wrap up here in a second.
Yeah, man.
So can you give us one quick tip for everybody out there, and then tell everybody how they can reach you?
One quick tip. I mentioned this earlier. And the first step, find somebody that you can trust and that knows your market, that knows your industry, and knows insurance inside and out. Find one person. If you try to work with more than one, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. Find one agent that knows his shit. That's the first thing you should do. There's a million tips after that, but that's step one. And how to contact me. I mean, really the best way to contact me is, just check out my website. That's bbinsuranceHub.com. The rest of my contact information is right on there. I'm on LinkedIn as well. It's just, Bill Bolton. And
Awesome.
Those are the two main ways to contact me. As you guys know, I'm not a big Facebooker.
No, you are not.
No.
And for those of you with really sharp ears, Bill is our intro voice on BizQuick podcast.
Oh, that's right.
So if you've been
accurate,
listening and wondering, yes, they are one in the same.
Yeah, I appreciate that plug. Yeah, that was another fun project.
Yes. Great. Well, thanks again, Bill, for all the information and joining the show. And thank you to our listeners. And all of that information that Bill gave will be in the show notes.
You can connect with us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and oh, hey, we have a YouTube channel. You can also reach us on sbpace.com.
And you can subscribe to our pod on whatever platform you're on listening to this particular podcast. Like us, give us a review, and give us any feedback you might have on the podcast.
We love feedback. We really, really do. You can also reach out to us about topics. If there's something you're interested in learning more about, let us know, and we'll do everything we can to get a guest on the show to cover it, or we might even just cover it ourselves. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show, fill out a form on sbpace.com, and we'll get back to you right quick. Oh, hey, we wrote a book. It's a #1 bestseller on Amazon. It's called Seriously, Now What? A Small Business Guide to Disaster Preparedness, and it comes with a companion workbook.
That's right. And if you've already purchased the book, head out to Amazon and rate and review our book, because we greatly appreciate all of the reviews. 1 star, 5 star, doesn't matter. Go out there and give us a review. But that's it for today's podcast. I'm Corey.
And I'm Julie.
And this was BizQuick, helping small businesses across America.